Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation about Introduction to Systemic Functional Grammar. Today, we're exploring a foundational concept in systemic functional linguistics, developed by M.A.K. Halliday and expanded by scholars like Matthiessen and Thompson. This theory views language not just as a set of rules, but as a meaning-making system shaped by context and purpose. One of its key pillars is the experiential metafunction, which help us understand how language encode experiences. We use grammar to represent actions, events, and relationships in the world around us. Okay, what is the experiential metafunction? It's the grammatical system that allows to construct representations of experiences. According to Halliday and Matthiessen, 2014, it organizes our experience into three core components. The first one is question, what is happening? And the first question, what is happening? These are the second, here we talk about who or what is involved. These are the noun or the nouns or the nouns or the noun phrases involved in the process. And the third one is the circumstances. These are adverbial or prepositional phrases that provide context. Circumstances answer the following question, like where, when, how, and when, because it provides additional context, like I said before, like time, manner, and places. What is the transitivity? Transitivity is the system within the experiential metafunction that structures these three components into meaningful clauses. As Thompson 2014 explains, transitivity is not about whether a verb takes a direct object as in traditional grammar, but rather about how language represents experience through different processes. For example, the clause, the pilot climbed to 10,000 feet. What is the process? Climb, because it's the material action. The pilot, the actor, is the participant, the one who's doing the action. And the circumstance is to 10,000 feet. It's like is the place and destination. Uh, Halliday identified 6 main types of processes, and there are the processes types overview. Each representing a distinct kind of experience. The first one is the material process, is the physical action or event like build. The second one is the mental processes. These are internal experiences like thoughts or feelings. The third one is the relational processes and is the state of being, the identity or possession, for example, be or become, or even to have. Then we have the processes. Here we talk about physiological or psychological action, for example, breathe. Then we have the existential processes. These are the expression of existence. For example, there is, there are, because each process type brings a different lens in how we encode reality. Then we have the process of thinking and being. Here we have the mental processes reflect internal experiences like thinking, feeling, perceiving. And we have the example, the pilot noticed turbulence. What is the process? Notice, because it's the perception. The pilot is the participant because it's the actor. And what is the phenomenon? The turbulence. And then we have relational processes. They express identity and classification or possession. For example, the weather is clear. Where is the process? Is, because it's relational. Then we have the weather. What is the weather? The carrier. What is the attribute? Clear. These processes are more common in narrative or descriptive genres where state perceptions are foregrounded. Then we have the behavioral, verbal, and existing processes. When we talk about behavioral processes, bridge physical and mental actions. For example, the passenger side, the process side because it's behavioral. The participant is the passenger, and the verbal process involves communication. We have the verbal process in the express communication. For example, the controller, instructor, and the pilot. What is the process? Instructor. The sayer, the controller. And who is the receiver? The pilot. And then we have the existential process. The existential process introduces existence. For example, there is a delay on the runway. The process is existential. Existent, the delay. Why it matters language as an experience, experience. Understanding transitivity allows us to see how grammar encodes experience. In high-stakes contexts like aviation, the dominance of material processes and precise circumstances ensures clarity and safety. In narrative or reflective contexts, mental and relational processes help express through an identity, as Halliday in 1994 emphasized. Grammar is not just a set of rules; it's a system. Wait, grammar is just not a set of rules; it's a system for construing meaning. Transitivity is how language adapts to different communicative needs, making a powerful tool for both analyze and pedagogy. Eh, thank you. Thank you for hearing my presentation.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Ana Bernia, and I'm going to give you an example of experiential metafunction transitivity about the theory that my partner Maria just explained to us. In this case, I chose the transitivity in aviation English because it's the field that I know from firsthand. Okay. So we have just heard about the experiential metafunction transitivity, which is the system that allows language to represent the world as a configuration of processes, participants, and circumstances. Now I want to show you exactly how this system works. In one of the most precise high-stake language registers there is, which is aviation English or the radio communications in aviation. Why aviation? Because every word spoken between a pilot and an air traffic controller must map perfectly onto a real world action or state. This is a highly constrained environment that reveals fundamental mechanics of transitivity with crystal clear. In this example, let's first talk about the three pillars on transitivity. In this first case, is the process, the participants, and the circumstances. The process, which is the verb in this case, is the action, the event, or the state. In aviation, this is usually a movement or a positioning. That means an aircraft moving from one point to another or positioning itself in a specific point in the airport. The basic question is what happened. For example, taxi, climb, or hold. In this case, taxi means the movement of the aircraft on ground from point A to point B. Okay? The participants or the nouns, these are the things or people involved. In our world, this is the aircraft or the controller. So the question who or what is involved. Example, Delta 427 which is going to be the example that we're going to use. Runway 25 or run control. And the circumstance, the where, when, or how. This adds contextual information like location, time, manner, or route. Those are specific. So the question where, when, or how did it happen, like via Alpha Taxiway or at 1,500 feet or for maintenance. So these elements are from the backbone of experiential meaning in language, according to Thompson 2014. So in this case of study, our specific example, it's a case of radio communications. Is a radio exchange between a ground control and an aircraft, which is going to be a large jet. The registration or the call sign of the aircraft is going to be Delta 427. So the communication or the conversation between them is going to be like so. Pilot, ground Delta 427 is ready for departure. Delta 427 taxi to runway 25 via Alpha. Taxiing to runway 25 via Alpha, Delta 427. Hold short of Alpha, Delta 427, traffic is approaching. So let's dissect this exchange clause by clause, and let's focus on the process type and how the participants and circumstances are structured. In clause number 1, Delta 427 is ready to taxi. So the process type is a relational process. It is not about doing an action, it's about stating the state of being or a relationship of equivalence. The participants here are the carrier, which is Delta 427, and the attribute in this case is ready to taxi. So the plane is in a state of readiness. He's ready to do any specific action. So the language just simply establishes this condition. Okay, so in clause number 2, Delta 427 taxi to runway 25 via Alpha. The process type here is a material process. This is a doing. The command structure is ordering a physical action to take place. Okay, it's giving an instruction. The participants, so the actor, which is Delta 427, it is understood from the call sign, and the goal of the action is the implicit route. Okay, that is going via Alpha. So the circumstances is the circumstances of place destination to runway 25. The circumstances route is via Alpha. So in this case, the controller is using transitivity to mandate a specific physical movement through space, going from point A to point B. In the next clause, clause number 3, taxiing to runway 25 via Alpha, Delta 427. The process type here, again, is a material process. It's a doing. This is the pilot confirmation of the instruction that the ATC or the air traffic controller gave. So this is why, because it's a confirmation, the pilot uses the exact same language. Okay, and the material process here is a structure to prove they understand the action, the destination, and the route. So the shared concise transitivity here prevents ambiguity. There's no room for errors here in aviation. In clause number 4, hold short of Alpha Delta 427, traffic is approaching. So in this case, in part 1, the material process is hold short, is to stop, okay, to stop the movement you were doing. Another command for a physical state, stop movement. And the second part is another material process, which is the approaching of another aircraft, the approaching to the airport of another aircraft. This is a happening that affects the first action. So participants here, the actor is the traffic that is coming to the airport. So the controller gives a command, a doing, and then immediately justifies that action with a happening. Okay, why I am stopping you? Because of the air traffic that is coming to the airport. The transitivity here makes the reason for the command instantly clear, that justification. This exchange exemplifies how transitivity structures are used to encode action, state, and justification with minimal ambiguity, with no rooms for errors. This transitivity and register, in this case, the takeaway. So why does this tell us about the experiential metafunction? First of all, the material processes dominate here. Okay, so overwhelmingly, aviation uses material processes, doings and happenings. It's how it works in my fields. Why? Because this environment is primarily concerned with a physical observable movement. There is no time for nouns mental processes, which are feelings or thoughts. There are no time for that, or any complex verbal processes. There are no room for chit chats or any small talks. The communications in aviation must be precise, and they are always given instructions. There's a lot of action in aviation. So then, talking about concise circumstances, the circumstances are always location, like the holding point, the route, like via Bravo or Delta or any other intersection, or the time, specific time, like in this case, 1400 Zulu. So vague emotional circumstances are eliminated entirely. There is no room for emotions, just strict direct communications, instructions, and efficiency through shared context. The transitivity structure is incredibly condensed. The controller rarely says, I ordered you to, or you must now do something. It's not a military order, it's an instruction where the participants are assumed that the command is direct, and the structure is done this way to minimize ambiguity. Okay, so conclusion in this case is that aviation English offers you a compelling empirical context for examining transitivity within the framework of experiential metafunction. It's an environment where there is no room for errors, so there is no ambiguous communication. Okay, must be precise, must be done with clarity, with precision, and with efficiency. This structure is a functional necessity that underscores dynamic relationship between language and context. So in this case, let's affirm that transitivity is not just a theoretical construct, but it's a practical mechanism. As I told you before, it's like a bridge between theory and the real world. Okay, so thank you very much for listening.